about the signal chat controversy?
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out.
There's been a lot of controversy because 5 former Secretaries of Defense, that would be Lloyd Austin, Jim Mattis, Leon Panetta, Chuck Hagel, and Mr. Perry, have all written a letter to Congress criticizing Donald Trump's administration, and in particular Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump for firing a number of officers, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Brown.
President Donald Trump's firing of the top U.S. military officer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown.
This is a reflection of the president wanting the right people around him to execute the national security. I have a lot of respect for C.Q. Brown. I got to know him over the course of a month. He's an honorable man, not the right man for the moment.
And they said this is reckless, it hurts morale, and it will depress recruitment. Recruitment reached near record levels after the election of Donald Trump. It's on the way up. It was depressed prior to that.
The U.S. Army announcing that they are shattering recruitment records after seeing their most productive December in more than a decade. And some are saying that President Trump could be to thank for this.
Why would it be depressed? If you go through the Pentagon data, it's very hard to decipher. They keep records on race, gender, sexual orientation, on promotion, on units, composition, but they don't like to do it on combat fatalities or the particular demographics that are not signing up according to their past percentages.
5 former Secretaries of Defense, all echoing the same warning, that Donald Trump is a threat to the military's morale. But hold on, what if it's not Trump that's politicizing the Pentagon? What if it's them? What if the real crisis isn't who gets fired, but why recruitment surged when Trump was elected and collapsed under those who claimed to defend the institution?
If you wade through that, you will learn that recruitment was off among white males who died disproportionately at double their numbers in the demographic, and they were not signing. Why? 8,500 of them, the majority I think were white males, refused to get the vaccination, and most had natural immunity. That was a very poor decision to drum them out of the military.
Status of the 8,400 U.S. military personnel who got kicked out for refusing to get the COVID vaccine.
We are not currently pursuing back pay to service members who were dismissed for refusing to take the COVID vaccination.
Now we're trying to get some of them back.
This week I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay.
The second is that when you had that testimony by General Milley and Lloyd Austin about suggestions to read now the discredited Professor Kendi, the DEI emphases, the idea they were going to run an investigation of the rank and file to see if there were white supremacists, white rage, white privilege, that depressed recruitment. And now that has been swept away, recruitment is coming back up.
Victor Davis Hanson lays out something the mainstream media refuses to touch. Recruitment didn't fall because of firings. It fell when politics invaded the ranks, when soldiers are told they're oppressors, when race, gender, and ideology become more important than mission readiness. Why should anyone sign up to defend that? Hanson isn't defending Trump blindly. He's pointing out hypocrisy. Obama fired generals. Biden fired his advisory board. But when Trump fires someone, suddenly it's an attack on democracy. And let's not ignore the most chilling part. General Mark Milley, as Hanson recalls, bypassed the chain of command and warned China if Trump acted erratically. Think about that. Is that patriotism or insubordination?
This is not the politicization of the Pentagon, it's the depoliticalization. It's not new. Generals have been fired by prior presidents. General McKiernan, the theater commander of Afghanistan, fired by Barack Obama with very little explanation.
Today I accepted General Stanley McChrystal's resignation as commander of the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan.
General McChrystal, and an untoward remark, fired his replacement. And one of the signees of the letter, Jim Mattis, fired by Obama without much explanation. He was CENTCOM commander. He was doing a good job. He was fired. He signed the letter. I could go on. There were 3 or 4 other generals that were prominent that Obama fired. Joe Biden came in and he fired all of the 18 political appointments on the Defense Advisory Board. That just happens. I was on the non-political American Battlefield Monuments Commission. As soon as Obama came in 2009, he fired all of us. This idea that relieving commanders or defense personnel or advisory boards, it's not. The next thing is the Pentagon has real problems. With this emphasis on DEI, they have neglected things. We are short 155 millimeter shells. We are short certain types of cruise missiles, javelins. Our munition stockpiles are depleted. We have failed 3 outside audits in the Pentagon since they were initiated in 2017. We allowed a Chinese balloon to traverse the continental United States with impunity. I think the Red Sea and the Straits of Hormuz, the South China Sea and the Black Sea were pretty much off limits to international shipping for a time because we had lost deterrence. We didn't reply to over 100 attacks on U.S. installations in Syria and Iraq. So there is fundamental problems in the Pentagon, budgetary, military, and they need to be addressed. Lloyd Austin was AWOL for several days. He signed the letter. He could have been fired for that. Lower-ranking officers were. Jim Mattis and Chuck Hagel were fired as defense secretaries. I mean, you could argue whether it was fair or not, but they were dismissed. But more importantly, Leon Panetta signed this letter. He was one also of the 51 intelligence authorities that said right on the eve of the election and a few days before the 2020 debate that Hunter's laptop, which was in the hands of the FBI and authenticated, had all the hallmarks of a Russian information, which meant disinformation campaign.
Letter you signed on to from former intelligence officials saying that the laptop and the emails had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation.
And my concern was to kind of alert the public to be aware that these disinformation efforts went on. And frankly, I haven't seen any evidence from any intelligence agency that that was not the case.
So in other words, Leon Panetta is now decrying the politicalization of the Pentagon when he went out before an election and tried to use his fides as a former CIA director and defense secretary to basically lie to the American people in order to arm Joe Biden before the debate so he could deny what was factual. The laptop was authentic. That affected the 2020 election.
All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening.
Either the new Pentagon for the first time will pass an audit or it won't. Whether recruitment, which has reached almost record numbers since the election, 350 per day in the military. Whether we restore recruitment or not, it will be adjudicated. Whether the defense cuts are wise or not will be adjudicated. Whether we have deterrence in the Red Sea, the Middle East, Ukraine will be adjudicated. It seems to be highly irresponsible for a number of former secretaries to accuse the administration. General Brown was a political Joint Chiefs chairman, general. He, on a number of occasions, pontificated about race and gender, and that was not central to his mission. He gave editorialization to the American people about DEI. He followed from a Joint Chief who was very political. Remember Mark Milley? He contacted his Chinese counterpart in the People's Liberation Army to warn him that if he, Milley, diagnosed Donald Trump as erratic, he would first warn the communist Chinese general. Interrupted the chain of command. As chairman of the Joint Chief, he has no role in the chain of command. Milley usurped that role and told theater commanders to report to him first, not the defensive secretary. And then upon retirement, he called the former president an active presidential campaign a fascist. We have seen numerous violations of Article 88 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice in which retired generals have called then President and Commander-in-Chief Trump a fascist, Nazi-like, Mussolini-like, a congenital liar. We don't need any more letters up from so-called experts. They're always partisan, and they're to no effect.
So here's where we end up. If the military's own leadership lies about Hunter Biden's laptop before an election, if they speak of white rage while ignoring combat readiness, if generals write open letters to smear a political opponent, who's really politicizing the Pentagon? And more importantly, do you trust a military run by political narratives? Would you join? Would your kids? Or are we watching the slow decay of the very institution meant to protect us? Are we witnessing reform or collapse?